Join our host, Doland White, as on this week's The Next Interview, you'll hear Madison Hollimon explain exactly how leaders scale brands and teams through authenticity, trust, and clear accountability without losing control or burning out.
Welcome to the Next Interview Show podcast. I'm Doland White, and as the announcer mentioned when we came through the front door, I am the host of the podcast. And I'm always blessed to have wonderful guests on the podcast to talk about leadership and topics and running companies and helping people become better at what they do. And today I have Madison Hollimon on with me. And Madison is the owner and founder, by the way, and I love the title of your business, love the Mad Marketing House. And I want to just start, every podcast starts with gratitude. There's a thousand other things you could be doing right now, Madison, and you're going to hang out with me for a half hour. And so I'm grateful that you're going to hang out, have a conversation, and we're going to focus on time so I can get you out in time to go get your daughter. And we'll have just kind of a nice conversation. So thank you for being here today.
Of course, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So for the guests that haven't met you, and what I'd like to do is just take a couple of minutes and just talk about your background and kind of your journey to where you are today, and which can be a long story just from that perspective. But I would like to know a little bit more about you and about your business and kind of how you got to where you are. We were talking before we hit go about, just in my little bit of research, that I found you're a third generation entrepreneur, third in a generation, which is awesome. Eldest of 5 girls, which is cool. That's a lot of power. So let's just a little bit about your background. Introduce yourself.
So yeah, I'm the oldest of 5 girls. I grew up in an entrepreneurial household. My dad started an international luxury brand, and his clients were and still are billionaires, celebrities, and royal family members of the Middle East. So he started this in 2000 when I was in kindergarten, and witnessed him grow and scale this business over the past 25 years. And now it's a very successful brand, and they build a $2 million product and they sell it and deliver it across the world. And it's obviously a family business. 2 of my sisters work full-time within his business. My husband works full-time, my mother, and I worked with him for a period of time as well. But him and I are extremely alike, and we butt heads a lot. And after working together for 4 years, I knew that my dad was never going to pay me enough money to where I could go buy designer handbags and do the trips that I wanted to take. Yeah. And I knew I had to do something myself. So I ended up going and working for a very prestigious plastic surgeon in Augusta, Georgia for 2 years. Wow. And witnessed every cosmetic surgery you can. And it's funny because my grandfather was the family doctor in South Florida, a town called Pahokee, Florida. And he would operate on, at the time, everything was very segregated. You have the whites and the blacks, and he would operate on both. He was the only surgeon in Pahokee, Florida. So he was a very well-to-do. My great-grandmother never worked. She had a full-time housekeeper and cook and a nanny that kept the kids. And she loved cigarettes that she'd go through in a couple of days. And it's interesting because I have a little bit of like my great-grandmother in me, but I also have a lot of my great-father in me. So it's kind of a battle between the two, like wanting to just relax and have all the support, but then also, busting my butt and grinding and working super hard. So it's literally in my blood to have, my own business. And after working for the surgeon for 2 years, I loved my time there, but I knew that I wanted to have an agency at some point. But I didn't think that at 24 years old, I would start this agency and have it scale as fast as it did. And that's exactly what happened. Within the first 3 years, we doubled revenue every single year. And then on the cusp of year 4, we hit a very hard spot and we almost went out of business. And through rebuilding in that 4th year is really what's given me the grit and the knowledge that I have today on what it takes to actually scale a business on social media. And we literally took the strategies from social that we were doing for other clients and applied them to our agency. And we were able to triple our revenue in 12 months after doing that.
Awesome. That's a really good story. I think there's a lot of stuff to talk about inside of all of that, Madison. just a lot of things. First of all, is the family dynamic. One of the things I talk about, this is, with my clients that I work with, is life, right? There's no such thing as work-life balance. There's only life. And in life, there's domains. There's family and spouses and vacations and it's on your website, all the places you like to travel, which is cool because I've been to a bunch of those places. They're great places. And kind of the dynamic between you and your dad, I think that it's interesting in some families how, it takes time to kind of recognize those dynamics and then have courage to kind of to recognize it. And then second, the courage to do something about it. Because I think a lot of leaders have a tendency just to stop and just keep going. When you made that change and you kind of recognized that that's what you needed to do, and I have to smile though, having with your comment about realizing how close the two of you were alike. What was that like, kind of from the decision perspective? Because there's a doorway to kind of step through of nerves and fear to kind of say, I'm just gonna go do my own thing, especially when he's running a very successful business. Now, what was your thinking kind of heading through that? I think
there was a good bit of dissension at that time. He was really upset that I stepped back from the family business because, everything's always been about the family business. Even to this day, we'll sit around the dinner table and that's still the topic of conversation, his business, which, it is a very, successful business. But as somebody that has had a lot of success, you do look to your parents and your dad, especially, for that recognition to know like, hey, like I did succeed and do something. So it was hard for our relationship was strained for a while until we finally were to kind of reconcile. And then once he kind of saw, obviously, like a lot of what I know when it comes to graphic design and building websites and apparel, he taught me, because during that period of time of me being in high school and college, his business was going through a lull. And he had a lot of time on his hands to sit there and teach me these things. Like to this day, that would never, ever happen. He's never in a city for more than a couple of days. So I really value that time and that knowledge that he gave me for me to take and apply somewhere else.
Cool. I think that's really important. And that balance can be tough to kind of reinstate that balance, and particularly when it's family. Right? I'm watching some of that going on inside of members of my family today over the last few months. So as you were, one of the things you mentioned that was, kind of, and this was when you were around 24. Is that did I hear the age right? That you stepped out to go
24? Yeah, that was 5 years ago, almost.
Yeah. Wow. That's a big shift, and particularly, when you're at that age to kind of step up and say, hey, I've got to do this. And you make that plan and you step through that door. So just a little bit of a tip of the hat to you for calling.
Well, I had a 3-year-old. I had a 3-year-old, my husband and I. Yeah. And, having children is very expensive. My husband didn't go to college. He worked in sales, and we all know how sales are. It's either really good or it's bad. And he was going through a season of sales were really bad. And I had to figure something out to be able to help support our family.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's a lot of the things and I think, I guess in leadership, Madison, there's a lot of tenacity and grit, right? I think that goes into that, where you recognize that, you need to be able to go do those things, right? One, to take care of your family, and two, because it's an option for you to go do more with your life in your way, which I think that's an incredibly important decision. Those are tough points. When you were kind of going through that, and you started your business, and you mentioned that your business kind of doubled income over year, and about 4 years in, there was a lull in the business. Without getting into specifics as to why there may have been a lull, you kind of leaned in on something I think that's really important for leaders to pay attention to, and being the leader of your company, which is you applied what you taught into your business and rescaled your business, regrew your business. And I want to explore that a little bit with you. And what does that mean? And what did you do? And then I want to talk about leaders.
Well, I got really clear on the audience and the type of clientele I wanted to serve. And I took a lot of that back to my experience. That's why my experience is so important, because I took working for a plastic surgeon, working on a luxury brand or personal brand, and made the industries my avatar. So I had 3 different avatars, essentially, that our content on social media would speak to. And then we would literally cold message them on Instagram. We would find these accounts and we would send them messages and say, hey, your page needs help. We have an agency. Give us the opportunity to get on a call with you and provide you a free strategy on basically how we would do this for you. And we basically figured out what our cost and time was. Like, we knew that if we messaged 7 med spas, we would get a client a week.
Wow. That's really clear understanding of your metrics. So when you were doing that, kind of reaching out to it, there's a couple of things I want to kind of just step back on, because I think what happens in a lot of businesses, I'm old, right? I'm 72, been a CEO, run marketing companies, which we'll talk about off air sometime. We'll get together and have another chat over a cup of coffee, virtual cup of coffee. But I think one of the things that I see happen inside of businesses is we have a tendency, business leaders have a tendency to think that what they've done in the past is going to get them to where they need to be in the future. And it just doesn't work that way at all. So I think your comment around stepping back and getting really clear on who your audience is, what their personas are, and then going and talking directly to that persona is really important for listeners. Matter of fact, I would recommend those listening to the podcast, there's a little thing on your phone screen where you can push a button and go back 60 seconds and listen to what Madison was talking about there. I think that's really, really important as you go do that. When you began to kind of see that uptick, Madison, and the business started to grow, were you in a position? How did you turn it into? How did you shift from scaling, which is more, right, getting more, into sustainable?
Well, we are in that process as we speak.
Good.
Because over the past 12 months, it's been nothing but this.
Yeah.
And we've kind of really reached, as you start a business, you think like, what is my goal, right? And we did that. So now for me, it's like, okay, let me sustain here for a moment. And as a business owner, a moment could be 30 days, 60 days. Like,
sure.
There's no real true about like a measure. And then what does the next stage look like? And I've never thought about that up until I reached the first goal.
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, now that I see how easy it was to get to 2 million, what is 3 million? What is 5 million? And we hit these goals, and then we realize that like, okay, like that feels really good, but like, what's next?
Yeah, I think that's important. One of the things that leaders get lost in, is, especially when they're going through that process, is how do you flip that scale into something that's sustainable? And it's okay to stop and take a breath. Stop, take a breath, look at your business, and really kind of look back at what got you to where you are today. When you're working with leaders, if you don't mind, I want to shift gears just for a couple of minutes and talk about the people that you work with. I think one of the things that I experienced in marketing, and particularly working with executives and people about their brands, is brands tend to be very personable, not personal, well, personable too, I suppose. And it's hard for people to let go and trust in the creative work, right? They want to touch it, and they're going to hold that piece of coal until it turns into a diamond into their hand. Not going to let go.
Mm-hmm.
How do you work with your clients when you are, because it takes a great deal of trust. How do you work with your clients, or how does your team work with clients? This is well beyond you, to help develop that trust, right? So that leader, that organization that you're working with, really does begin to let go and trust in your creative capabilities.
Well, our whole agency is founded on creating authentic, vulnerable content. So that's our number one, is you hire us to come to your place of business and to shoot authentic content of you and your team. Number two is when we get on a discovery call with a client, we're going to do a lot of listening to a lot of their pain points. And then how do we create a strategy to solve those pain points and provide a solution to get them to their goal. And within that, we are honest. We'll say, okay, this is your goal, but that budget's not going to get you there in X amount of time. And that's really how we've been able to have an agency now that is based on referrals. We don't run ads for ourselves. We don't really do cold outreach anymore. We have built the agency to the point now where clients just refer us other people in their industry or other people that have a need. And we just we do the best job we can, and we over communicate.
So there's about 19 things inside of that. In that list. But one of the things I love that you just were talking about, Madison, is you approach it from a point of authenticity. There's a bunch of laws that I teach. One of the laws that I teach is authenticity can't be faked.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whenever we try to fake authenticity, there's the old Alabama boy, and he comes out. People smell it on you. They know, right? You're not being authentic. And I think that cornerstone of authenticity, in order to build that trust, is really, really, that's kind of, in my mind, that's the pre-trust move, which is, I'm going to be authentic with you. I'm going to tell you. I really like your comment, Madison, about candor. I think a lot of times organizations, and particularly groups that come in to help a company, don't have radical candor. They kind of go along with the flow, and they don't really tell you, I like your comment around that budget, that idea that you've got. The budget that you have won't cover the idea that you've got.
Mm-hmm.
So you either develop the budget or do less, I would imagine, is probably your next logical two-step.
Yeah.
And sometimes if it's less, then it doesn't involve,
it's not worth it.
I was going to say, then that's an indicator where it's kind of like,
I had a client last week that I had to send the email to. It was a difficult decision because they just couldn't invest what needed to be invested. They kept trying to strip it out and redo it a different way. And I'm like, guys, let's just pause. We can come back to this in the future, but right now, I don't want to waste any more of your time, any more of your dollars, because you're not ready.
I like that. How was that? What was their reaction to that? Kind of through that whole process?
They were a little upset because, it's rejection.
Sure.
Essentially. And they wanted to get it done now or yesterday.
Right.
The problem is a lot of people that want to get it done yesterday usually aren't ready and don't have the funds for what it takes. Most of the time. I do have clients that are like, I'll pay whatever as long as I can get it done fast. But most of the time they're not in a position to be able to support it.
Sure. Yeah, I've had a couple of those in my career. Those clients that just go, I got all the money you need. Those are rare birds.
Yeah. And the thing is, as you do this so much and you sit on as many discovery calls as I have over 5 years, you can tell immediately the personality of somebody and how that business relationship is going to work and how it's going to go.
Yeah. What do you, when you're on those discovery calls, I think it's an important this is kind of that's an important topic, I think, for leaders that are listening to the podcast. What are you listening for?
I'm just letting them tell me everything about them. And then I'll ask a few frequent questions that kind of will trigger another thought. And usually what I'm doing is I'm trying to find something to connect with that person on, whether it's the fact they both have kids, or we like to travel somewhere, or we know some common and we do this. Because once you can make that connection on a call, you will see their wall that they have up slowly come down, and they will become more vulnerable and open and honest with you. And if you can get them vulnerable and open and honest with you, they're going to tell you everything you need to know about how that trajectory of that client relationship can go.
Yeah. I love that, because I do think once you kind of level that playing field a little bit, and we all kind of understand it. I've always believed, Madison, we set title aside. There's a million titles in the world, and I've had the honor to wear the badge a couple of times to have some of those titles, and it's cool. But at the end of the day, we all kind of want the same stuff. We all want a good vacation. We want a good house. We want to take care of our kids. We want to buy food. Want hot dogs in the fridge. I'm a big hot dog fan, so I like hot dogs in my fridge.
I like the sushi dinner.
There you go. So and those kinds of things. And I think once we come to an understanding together of what people are really looking for, and that goes back to authenticity, kind of in that side of that authentic. I've been talking since 5 this morning. That authentic. I started with a call in Bahrain, and here we are today.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, but I think that's really important, because that really gets people down to the root of what it is that they're trying to accomplish, and even more importantly, why does it matter? What's really important when you're working with clients or prospective clients, and they won't take you all the way to why does it matter? How do you help them? How do you kind of crack that open in the conversation?
Usually it's not going to happen over one conversation. I'm going to have to get it over several. So we're going to have a series of calls, whether it's, usually they'll get their strategy, and then we'll have another call to review the strategy together. Right. And then they'll start asking questions, and you'll start talking about expectations and timelines and deliverables. And usually within that second call, you can kind of get a little bit more of what you need out of that potential client. And if you're having yellow flags or red flags in those conversations, 9.5 times out of 10, it's not going to be a successful partnership. And that's what it is. And I tell my clients that, or prospective clients, you're investing in us, and we are investing in you as an agency, because we can only work with and support so many businesses.
Right.
So it takes two. You have to invest time, and we have to invest. And I'll have people that'll be like, well, I'm paying you for this. It's like, yes, you're paying me for this, but you have to show up and give us what we need as well. Otherwise, it's not going to be successful.
Yeah. I love that statement, Madison, because I think there is that perception that, hey, I'm just paying you to do your job. Just go do it. And without that partnership, that really, truly, that overlap that occurs, you can't get there successfully. I used to love telling my clients, what I'm going to bring you is I'm going to show you something, and you're going to say, that's not the color of purple I expected.
Yeah.
We didn't define purple to start with. So
lots of variations. We tell clients it takes us 60 to 90 days to learn your style, learn your preferences, learn your voice, and then we get it dialed in. But it does take 6 to 12 weeks. Yeah,
I think that's and there's kind of no way around that. Because I would imagine, as you're going through the discovery calls with your clients, as they're onboarding, I would imagine, because you're going to discover things intentionally, and you're going to discover things accidentally. And it's little accidental things that make all the difference in the world as you're kind of building that relationship.
I had a client that we had to push back running paid ads for 90 days because once we went into launch campaigns, we realized their ads account was suspended.
Oh, no.
That was a curveball. We spent 90 days trying to get the account back. Finally, the Hail Mary was, let's just start a new page and nuke. And we had to make it with an abbreviated name because if Facebook detected that it was a similar account,
Sure.
they were going to shut it down.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Facebook gets funny that way. It's very mercurial.
And people don't understand that. Well, what is paid ads management for? It's like all of these things that you have to include. And the preferred support we get as an agency, because we spend so much money on Meta, we get more referred supporters.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's a really important part. We're just for a few more minutes, and then we'll wrap up podcast. But I think a lot of clients, and particularly in the marketing space, and in any space, they don't realize the nuances and the details that it takes to run the machine to move to the outcome that you're looking for. Meta is a perfect example. What Meta may think is their rules today at 4 o'clock probably may not be.
We'll change it tomorrow.
Frequently. And especially when you wake up in the morning and all your ads are turned off and there's nobody to ask why. Why is my ad off? So is your kind of, one thing I do want to, and maybe we'll just take 2 or 3 minutes and just talk real quickly about one last topic, and then I want to talk momentarily about your business, and we'll wrap up. What I'm really curious about, I think a lot of organizations struggle with 2 domains of identity. There's the domain of the identity for the business, and then the domain of the identity for the executives. For that CEO or founder. And when you're working with those, and maybe just because I believe very strongly that if you're a leader, you must have an identity. You must have a brand, either internally, preferably externally as well, in conjunction with your business. I know I try to, and sometimes I mess it up. Trust me. So when you're working with them, how do you kind of help them differentiate the importance of both? Why does that matter?
Well, because a lot of the times you're going to have somebody come into the business because of the founder or the owner, right? Everybody wants to be a part or work in conjunction with the founder and the Once you get to, like, right now, we are an agency of 50 retainer clients that we're producing content for every month. I cannot physically work on 50 retainer accounts and do PR and speak at events and network and have family. It's just impossible.
Sure.
So for me, the big piece was selling the team. Like, yes, I'm the one, I have personally picked and curated this amazing team of creatives that is available to you at a luxury price point, but you're getting the best.
Sure.
And it's like, you don't want just me. You want everybody else, because I've hired people that are better at things than I am, because I can only do so much. I'm strategy, I'm really good at sales, and obviously, really great at putting out fires and coming up with solutions to problems, but you want the team. You don't want just the founder.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a really important message. And I think leaders, it's one of the, to kind of paraphrase what Madison's talking about here is, I always loved hiring people that I viewed as smarter than me. Just because 2 things happen. One is I'm also a musician, as you can probably tell by the key, right? So I do lots of crazy stuff. This is not a music podcast, so we won't get into that. But I always love playing with people that play above my level. When you play with people that play above your level, you play harder. You rise to it. And rather than that inverted process where you're trying to get people to rise to you, it's much more fun to try to get up to them. So when you're working with clients, and kind of the last topic, because of one thing that I think is very important, this is your podcast, and I want to make sure people understand a little bit about your business and the clients that you like to work with, because you've touched on some things I think that are really important. A lot of people try to do marketing on a shoestring budget. They want to drink champagne on a beer budget, to use another redneck saying. The clients that you work with, let's talk a little bit about those. Who's a good fit for your agency?
So we obviously do a lot in the medical space because of my experience working for a plastic surgeon. So I work with a good bit of plastic surgeons, injectors, med spas, and other spas. And then we also do a lot in the luxury branding and product space, obviously with my background with my dad's business.
Sure.
And then we do a lot with services or personal brands. You know, a lot of people will build a business and they'll exit, or they will be on their second business and they want to show up in their industry as an industry leader or the best. So in order to do that, they want to work on their social presence as a brand and as a person.
Sure.
And in those three, it's usually what keeps us the most busy. You know, we do a lot with real estate or construction or interior design, but I would say those three are most popular.
Great. That's good. And that's it. There are, I would imagine. So I'm going to flip the question to you. And I've actually never asked a guest this question before. I'm going to ask you, what client do you not want to work with?
What client do I not want to work with? You know, I will work on any business in any industry.
Cool.
The client that I don't want to work with is the one that doesn't see value or have respect for the professionals they've hired. You know, I have a lot of people in the past that would have hired me and said,
Sure.
try to tell me how to do everything. And it's like, well, what's the point of hiring us if you're going to tell me how to do it?
Right.
So I think, you know, I work in any industry, but if you can't trust the professionals you've hired, don't want to work with you.
Right. Yeah. I love that answer, Madison, because I think that goes back to that authenticity and trust. That if that client can't recognize that you're there to work together, and then that's not a good experience. Got a couple of those in my career, so then
we all have.
Yeah, and we'll have more. They show up every now and then. They get through the filter. Yes, they do. Yeah, they do. Well, I want to be respectful of your time today, and I've enjoyed the conversation. I think there's a lot of really, really great insights here for my audience, my leaders that are listening to, that are either thinking about founding a business or stepping into a business. And it's a big thing to kind of step through that door of fear and run your own company outside of the body of your family's business, go do it successfully, and go through growth and downturn and then rescale your business. That's a big deal, Madison. So congratulations.
I would say my biggest piece of advice for your listeners is to always trust your gut, take the chance, because your neighbor won't take the chance. Trust your gut and go all in.
Yeah, I love that. Burn the ships. So I always close the podcast with the last piece, two pieces. The very first thing is another set of gratitude. I'm grateful for the insights that you've shared, because I think there's some really important statements that you've made inside of the body of the podcast that will help other people. On a personal note, I admire what you're doing. Which is sincere. And it's because I'm at 72 on this side of the curve, and I love to see entrepreneurs with families and tenacity and grit as they're growing into the business, because you are our future. So thank you for doing what you're doing, and thank you for staying here with me today to talk about what you're doing. And
absolutely, thank you for having me.
Yeah, a pleasure, quite a pleasure. All right, listeners, for the last two pieces of the podcast is give the podcast a know, like, share, or follow. That has nothing to do with vanity numbers. When the algorithm works, the math works inside of it makes the podcast visible. I'm blessed. The podcast is now sitting in the top 200 in like Zimbabwe or somewhere. So listen, give the podcast a know, like, share, or follow, add a comment. But what's even more important is if you know a leader who could learn something from what Madison talked about today, about running a business, the family life balance, the experience that she had growing and sustaining her organization, and particularly stopping periodically and looking at the success of the company and determining what's my next step. And pay attention to those kinds of things. Share those lessons with another leader. Help them be better leaders. And that's what we're all here for. We're here to empower 1 million leaders. That's my mission. So on that note, thanks, Madison, for being here with me today. I hope you have a great, great rest of your day.
Thanks for tuning in to the next interview show. If today's conversation gave you something to think about or something to act on, follow the show. And share this episode with a leader you know who's ready to step up, because empowered leadership isn't a solo sport.